Hello and welcome. This is Jim Karp with Raymond. I have Andy Rose along with Bob Nagel. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Great.
Doing great. Thank you.
Bob, we haven't had a chance to talk before. Can you quickly introduce yourself? And then we'll get right to the topic, construction, getting things started up. So take it away, Bob.
Certainly. My name is Bob Nagel. I'm a assurance and advisory tax principal. I've been with Raymond for 27 years, and Andy and I co-lead our construction industry practice together.
All right. So there's a lot going on these days. Things are moving quickly. People are getting back to work. What are the important things and how do we unpack this, guys?
Well, right now, a lot of the talk that is out there is regarding the PPP loan. Most of our clients, most businesses that were in the first round had their funds, and the focus has now turned to how do I maximize the forgiveness? I've got the funds, and I want to make sure that I end up with as much forgiveness as possible. And I think with the labor force returning as construction ramps up this week, that's really going to go a long way to helping our contractor clients certainly maximize that forgiveness, since the focus needs to be on payroll costs. So as they begin to ramp up and start to bring back all their employees and get back out, on the job sites and back to work, those payroll costs will naturally rise.
Yes, and I've been speaking with a lot of my clients on the same issue, and they tend to want to discuss how to maximize the forgiveness, and we quickly redirect them to be strategic and focus on what they need to do for the health of the business, and then let the forgiveness fall in place, and we will help them maximize that forgiveness calculation with the steps that they're taking.
Okay. So we know that the PPP and the forgiveness, and a lot of people are focused on that. A lot of organizations are managing their cash. They're looking out ahead. What are your thoughts on those?
So again, getting back to projects ramping back up, and back to buying materials and paying their people, there's certainly a need for capital. And so, the last month or month and a half, businesses have gone through a lot of their cash cushion. And, when operations ramp back up, there's a delay between collections and the ability to receive cash in the door for billings. And so, I think it's critical that our clients, our contractors, project out what the next probably 90 days, 13-week forecast is kind of the banking standard. So taking a look at what the next 90 days look like in terms of when am I going to be able to bill, what's the delay in terms of when we receive the cash. I got all these expenses, mobilization, bringing back employees, introduction of brand new costs to the job site with all the protective gear and the wash stations, and all the things that are new because of the COVID-19 spread. And so it's going to be critical, I think, that they take a look at what that looks like, and are able to plan accordingly, get more control over it, and make sure that they've got enough access to cash. Maybe it's the PPP funds that are gonna help with a lot of that, but just plain getting more control over it by forecasting out and seeing what it looks like. Bob, what would you add?
Yeah, and creating that 90-day vision, this is a great opportunity, especially for contractors perhaps that have not had this 90-day rolling forecast notion, to get it implemented as part of their business discipline. But our contractors, our strongest contractors, generally always have a line of credit for access to cash, and that's been the discussion with them over how many years they've had this line of credit, and they've never used it. And hopefully they'll get through this period without needing to access it, but having it there will certainly prove critical to having access to cash, as they need it. If there's ever been a time to be disciplined in your receivables, your credit management and your receivables collection, now is not the time to be shy in talking with your customers and getting that money in and understanding what their payment plans are to you, so you can build that into your collection. Now's the time to be talking with your vendors and your suppliers about your management plan to keep the communications there so they can work with you, our clients, as they develop their cash management plans. One interesting area where we've been able to create, I think, a lot of value is helping clients look at cash flow options for their retirement plan. And our retirement plan division has worked with clients in evaluating their retirement plan designs and explore whether or not they might be able to temporarily freeze plans or see what their payment options are with that. And so that's kind of a sleeper area that a lot of clients and contractors out there may not have thought of exploring while they've been working through this crisis situation. Andy, any other thoughts on that?
No, I would just add, back up what you said. I mean, we can certainly help with this. Raymond's been doing a lot of consulting around helping businesses, helping our clients project out cash flows and looking at maximizing the amount of forgiveness with PPP. So, I mean, certainly reach out to us, and we're more than capable to help you out.
Okay, so now we've talked cash, and people are getting ready to start up. There might be some challenges with the workforce. What are your thoughts along those lines?
Bob, you want to take this one?
Sure. I think the number one question that we've been fielding over the past couple of weeks is businesses have been starting to get the PPP funding rolling in, and their planning is, what do they do when they run into the situation of their workforce actually, in many cases, making more money, if you will, or having more household income because of the pandemic emergency assistance payments included in unemployment. They're running into situations or anticipating situations where the workers are going to perhaps respond that they don't want to come back to work because they're going to have less money going forward than before that. And this is one key area where our HR experts within our Raymond consulting division have been extremely beneficial in talking with clients on their unique situations. And that's one of our challenges throughout all this, is each client situation is unique. And so that is one of the most common and most critical questions businesses are dealing with right now. Andy, any thoughts on that?
No, I think you hit it right on the head. I think that's good, Bob.
How about safety for the associates when they're coming back? Any thoughts or comments on that?
Yeah, Jim, the job site is going to look considerably different in terms of the protocols that are going to be necessary to make sure that employees are maintaining distance between them, and sanitization is going to be more important than ever. And some of the things that you're going to start to see on the job site, of course, is the use of more personal protective equipment, so sanitizers and gloves to the extent that that's necessary, wiping down areas where equipment between employees using that various equipment, hand washing stations. There's a lot of things that are going to come into play that were not there a month and a half ago when the employees left the job site. So I think we'll get into this a little bit more, but communication with them in terms of what this looks like, so that it takes some of that anxiety away that they're going to have as they're starting to show up and wonder, what the heck do I have to do now? How am I going to do my job? Bob, anything?
I don't think I really have a whole lot to add on that. I think that I work with a lot of concrete contractors in my practice, and one of their challenges is as the jobs are starting out or the concrete's delivered, there's parts of that work that they have to be huddled together pretty close, and then after that, as the job progresses, they get more spread out. So each business is going to have to look at what those particular jobs and the way their workers are dispersed, looks like, to figure out, what's most critical in terms of their distancing and safety practices.
Okay, so technology is a big play for a lot of these organizations these days too, and there's some creative ways that they can leverage that. What are your thoughts along those lines?
So technology was already starting to permeate the job sites, and I think you're going to start to see a lot more of that, especially dealing with a lot of the COVID related type protocols that are going to need to be put into place. Some examples of things that were already out there that I think you'll see more of are going to be the wearables. So imagine, a vest that's got sensors on it to monitor an employee's temperature and other health metrics, and to make sure that that if they are starting to come down with a temperature or starting to feel ill, that that's being monitored, and there's proper alert to make sure that that's dealt with. For example, there's some technology out there by a company named FLIR. It's a thermal imaging camera that connects to your mobile phone. And so as employees are showing up in the morning, imagine, a job supervisor, project manager who's scanning people as they're coming into the workforce or into the job site. And, certainly drones for the larger work sites where there's people, kind of all over the place on a job site. Drones will become more important for monitoring distancing between employees, and monitoring temperature and other body metrics. So I think you're really going to start to see a lot more technology in the next couple of years really start to come into the job sites.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that the challenge is going to be is getting back to work. Everybody's getting back to work, and it's going to be a different world now. It's changed, and it's changed rapidly and suddenly. And hopefully everybody has some open-mindedness to these changes that are taking place. There's certainly a sensitivity to the maybe lack of a better phrase of Big Brother watching over the shoulder, but with employee and worker safety really at the heart of it. It likely will not be unusual to see drones monitoring some of those situations. And it's just a fact that daily temperature is going to be taking place, and there's going to be probably a large sense of feeling of employees maybe losing their individual rights, which is a hot topic in the when it comes to the return to work or the various governor shutdowns as well. So it's going to take a cooperative collaboration, if you will, between the businesses, the workers, the unions, the industry associations, and seems like everybody's on board with that. And time will prove how it all plays out.
Bob and Andy, along those lines, Google has partnered with Apple, and from the Droid platform and the iOS platform, they've got basically a networking type of package now, and it's going to include privacy for people. And really what it boils down to is they can now track to see if somebody's infected, and if you've been within range of that person, it can notify you. Now, it's not going to say this in particular individual, it's going to say you've been potentially exposed. And they're doing it, real interesting is they're doing it off the Bluetooth technology, and they can tell how close the Bluetooth was to you for how long. So that capability was rolled out like a week ago, and there's a lot of organizations that are leveraging it. Obviously, there's privacy concerns along those lines, but Apple's one of the most private companies in the world, and focused on those things. So it should be pretty interesting how we can leverage a lot of these technologies going forward. Another thought is communication. What are your thoughts? I think that this is going to be key as organizations start up. What do you think along those lines?
Yeah, I think communications, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be extremely important with the associates, both their remote workforce as well as their their associates out in the field. So again, it's going to look different. There's going to be different protocols, procedures that they're going to have to adhere to. They're going to have to be a lot more careful than they were before. And obviously our contractors are always careful on the job site, but this is a different kind of careful. And so, making sure that, they got the proper signage up and, guidance and nothing else, informal meetings, just to make sure that, this has a possibility of taking a toll on people from an anxiety perspective too. And, making sure that your employees are comfortable with, how it's all going to operate and what they're going to be required to do in this new normal. So, it goes without saying. We've always said before, communicate, communicate, communicate. But that certainly is going to be the mantra on job sites and with their employees.
And I agree. As the businesses started securing their PPP loan funding and that priority had been secured, we've been advising clients it's time to focus on your restore business, return to work plans, needing to have some communications in writing to proactively start building the vision for employees, what it's going to look like when they get back, whether it's in the administrative offices or on the job sites. And so having that return to work plan, and the more they can communicate up front, some of the things that they're going to have to be just, mindful of. But these things that had to do with the daily temperature checks, self-reporting of, their own health, the distancing, the testing, the safety requirements, as the weather warms up, and depending on a particular company's needs and distancing, if these construction workers are working in hot weather and they have to wear the safety mask, it's going to be extremely hot, extremely difficult, but the safety, is paramount. So there's going to be a fair amount of monitoring and seeing where where all this goes. So but the communication and building that vision up front, even now, there's a few days left before the May 7th return to work permission for contractors. Now is definitely the time to be getting that communication out to everybody.
We've talked cash, we've talked to PPP loan, bringing people back. Obviously, schedules have moved and pushed and et cetera. So what are your thoughts along those lines?
Yeah. So Jim, these projects, they've been stalled now for, a month and a half, and, the ones that were non-essential. And so as they start to ramp up these projects, projects have pretty specific deadlines and milestones that need to be hit, and to make sure that the owner is getting, getting the completed project that, their time that was projected to be done. And so, there's going to be a need for our contractors to reforecast what that looks like. Can they still hit those milestones? Do they think they can still achieve completion by a certain deadline out in the future? And if not, taking a look at the new timeline, and certainly starting to have conversations, if they haven't already, with the owner about potential delays. And a lot of contracts will have provisions for delays, and that can equate to penalties. And so our contractor clients are going to want to make sure that they understand what it's going to look like in terms of completion, and the contract terms that dictate what happens when milestones are not hit and projects aren't completed on a timely basis.
I agree with that. I think what I would add to that is, for example, the Michigan Infrastructure Transportation Association has devoted tremendous amount of resources in communicating to their members that are substantially involved in the infrastructure work with Michigan Department of Transportation, the various provisions and measures that MDOT has implemented along those lines in terms of timing, deadlines, and how it relates to the contract language. So industry associations, some of them can be a really good source of some information and guidance on that. And then for all the privately owned projects, the examining and understanding what the contract language is going to be paramount to successful completion, successful payment, whether or not there would be any change orders or change orders to be approved for mobilization, getting off the job, getting back on, things like that. So if anybody that has not endeavored to understand the contract language. For sure, they should start on their most critical projects. Now's the time to do that if they've not done that yet.
I would just add too that ABC and AGC have done a really nice job on their websites too of giving a lot of counsel and resources in the same regarding the COVID-19 and assisting with the legal ramifications regarding the contracts and all these things that that our contractor clients need to be aware of.
Yeah, there's so many great industry associations, and the thing is whomever a contractor's primary industry association is, that's who they should look to, because they've all been tremendously hard at work during this crisis time to provide as much guidance and resources as possible.
A lot of that then ends up boiling down to risk management. What are your thoughts from managing those aspects?
If they haven't already, they should definitely be counseling with their construction attorney and their risk management team, their surety, their insurance agent, making sure that they're addressing these concerns, these issues, especially now that they are ramping up this week and commencing contract construction again. So this is now more than ever. Make sure that you're getting your professional advisors involved in taking a look at all the different things that they got to look at right now. The list is long of things they need to be considering, and that's time to reach out to us, your legal counsel, your surety, your insurance carrier, everyone. Everyone part of that trusted advisor team.
Agree. And now's the time, especially with their insurance, is to be speaking with their insurance advisory team to determine whether there's anything that they've learned needs to be added to their coverages, in case they weren't before. But now's a good time to try to get on top of that, while the work's starting up.
How about policies and procedures? So, you're talking about getting with the attorneys and managing the risk and all those things. I would assume that plays a lot into risk management as well.
It certainly does, Jim. And I think this is a good lead in to our, we're going to have Susan West from our HR Solutions group tomorrow on a webinar at 3:00. And, we can certainly answer a lot of those questions. Susan West and her team have been very busy taking a look at all of the employee issues with bringing your workforce back onto the job site and all the issues that go with that. And so I think we'll have a good session with Susan tomorrow, and I'm sure there'll be some time for some question and answer type of session there. And Tom Szymanski will also be on that webinar talking about cash flow forecasting, which I brought up earlier. So it'll be a value added webinar, no doubt.
If I'm not mistaken, that's going to be recorded and people can listen to it at their convenience. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Jim.
Okay, we kind of touched on technology before. We were looking at it from a safety perspective along those lines. What about remote work site, job sites, and those things? Is there additional thoughts from a technology?
Yeah, as all this technology continues to invade the job site, and more remote workforce starts to take place, there's going to be a certain need for IT, more so than ever before, to make sure that all this technology is running. The connected job site, as they call it these days. So IT is going to play an even ever increasing role in making sure that everything works and that the communications are there between the devices and those that are monitoring, and making sure that decisions are being made on regarding the data that's coming in and being collected. If you haven't bolstered up your IT staff and you haven't heavily invested in that area, that's definitely going to be a need going forward. And Raymond can certainly help in this regard.
Hey, Bob, we haven't talked much about taxes, and I know when you introduced yourself, I know you said you do a lot with taxes too. How about the topic of non-deductibility and your thoughts along those lines? Didn't the IRS just come out with something?
The IRS did just come out with an announcement late last week. Is probably the most disappointing part of all the consultative work that we've been working with our clients. Not sure, certainly wasn't shocking, not even was surprising to a lot of us, out there. But the IRS has put a formal announcement that any expenditures or deductions, if you will, that are being forgiven under the Paycheck Protection Program loans are not to be deducted on their respective tax returns. That issue is now before Congress. It will be up to Congress to change that position, and so that's what we are monitoring this coming week to see if we see any action being taken on that, which probably will take some time. Andy, any thoughts on that and what you've read or heard so far?
No, I would say that those of us in the tax world were not surprised by this. It was very interesting to see Senator Chuck Grassley's response to it, who obviously was not very happy with the communication from the IRS. But again, I think it was expected based on long-standing tax principles, and whether or not it gets overturned, the IRS has kicked it back to Congress for sure. So we will see.
All right. Well, we've had a great conversation here. You guys have covered a lot to get everybody up and running. Any final thoughts from the two of you?
My final thought would be, this is the time to reach out to to us and your other professionals that are on your service team. There's a lot going on right now, and things are changing fast. And so, just making sure that you're staying on top of all this and making sure that there aren't things that are, going unnoticed, or, you haven't checked off your list of things you need to address. So, that's it from me, Jim.
I think returning to work is a team effort. Everybody's gotten, I guess, used, if you will, to the remote, workplace, and they're going to have to readjust to getting back on the job site, getting back into, offices. And I think, most importantly right now is that the employers need to make sure, if they do not already have in place, what are all of those return to work procedures, safety precautions. How are they going to be dealing with things such as temperature checks or distancing, or do they need to a lot of these offices have open floor plans, and do they need to do some sort of plexiglass barriers and things like that? So all this return to work is going to come upon us very quickly, and now if it's not been done yet, now is the time to take action on getting those procedures in place. So consulting with your HR advisors and risk management, your entire advisory team, this certainly would be the week to do that.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Don't forget out there, if you're listening, that there is that webinar that's going to be focused on getting back to work from a building perspective. We highly encourage you to tune in. That'll be out on our website. Bob and Andy, I appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to talking to you in the near future.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.